Welcome to another edition of Grateful by Lady Law, where I get to interview people that have been substantial influencers, motivators, and friends in my life. Today, I have another wonderful guest with me, Erin Fox. Erin is a legend in Omaha for her ability to argue workers' comp cases. She specializes in workers' comp. She also does probably a few other types of laws. We were just talking about how sometimes something comes across your desk and you just got to take it. But I wanted my listeners to hear more from Erin and find out a little bit more about what makes her tick. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, for having me.
Absolutely. So I think Erin and I met. I was trying to remember this when we first met. Like I said, I've heard about you throughout the years. You know that you started out as in the workers' comp court working there, and then went into private practice, and everyone's like, she's the guru, she knows it all. And so I started doing personal injury, and a couple workers' comp cases came across my desk, and I think that's when I first reached out to you. Does that sound
I
all
think
right?
so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And when we first started talking, it was one of those things where it was just so wonderful to talk to a female attorney that was patient and kind and explained things. And, so thank you for always being that to me.
Oh, of course. I also have had similar experiences where like it's always nice to meet someone who's sort of encountered the unique aspects of being a female attorney and like isn't gatekeeping those things and just like welcoming and
Yes.
encouraging. So yeah, and it was great to get to know you over the past couple years. So
Absolutely, yes. So I wanted listeners to know a little bit more about you and kind of how you got started in the law, some of your background. So, yeah, wherever you want to start.
Okay, well, I was born no, I did. I grew up
Yeah.
in Colorado, so but I've pretty much been a Nebraskan for over 25 years, I think now. So,
Longer than you were in Colorado?
yeah,
Yeah, that's a milestone.
I'm right at that tipping point. So, but yeah, so my older brother is an attorney, and so it was kind of always in my head, like, oh, I'll just go to law school. That was kind of what smart kids did who didn't like blood. So I was like, no, not medical school. I don't know. And interestingly enough, so between college and law school, I took a gap year, and during that time, I was just kind of working temp jobs, and I ended up being placed at the work comp court and just transcribing decisions for the judges and that sort of thing. And for me, that was like good because it made me see like, well, hey, maybe I can be a lawyer. Like I'd see what the lawyers were doing and I'm like, oh, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
So I just was like, I'm gonna take the LSAT and if I get into UNL, then I'll go. And that's what happened. So and then after my first year of law school, the presiding judge at the time had asked me to come be the law clerk. So that's how I ended up working at the work comp court and just sort of learning about workers' compensation law. I don't think people like decide to be an attorney and then they're like, I really want to be a work comp lawyer because most people don't know that
Right.
much about it. But
Right.
so I did kind of fall into it. But at the same time, like when I was in law school, I never thought I'd be a litigator.
Right.
I just wasn't really sure. So I kind of fell into the area of law and then like you said, so after graduation, I worked as a staff attorney at the court.
Yeah.
Just working with the judges, reviewing settlements, and I had this super unique opportunity to learn
Yeah.
the area of practice, right? So
And see it from both sides.
right,
Yeah.
the substantive law too, like so without having to worry about billable time and all this stuff, like I just had unlimited time to like learn, which I personally that's something that really drives me is just like learning new things. And so
Yeah.
the first couple of years of my career were really focused on that, like learning the substantive area of the law. Um, you know, most of the judges have turned over since then, but just chatting with the judges, learning from them, learning from our general counsel. It was fantastic. But, I always wanted to challenge myself. So I was always on the lookout for like a new opportunity, like, oh, maybe I do want to do private practice, which is crazy because anyone who knew me in law school knew that I was like adamant I would never litigate. And here I am thinking about it. And so, I would see like firms have job postings over the years, and I didn't really bite until I saw Jen Caswell was, she's a prominent defense attorney, and I saw that her law firm was hiring, and I was like, you know what? That's really someone I could see myself like learning a ton from, and
Yeah.
that I don't know, it's just something prompted me to like apply, and then I got the job, and so that's when I started in private practice on the defense side. So I represented employers, did basically work comp insurance defense for several years with Jen. So and she was the nice part of that period in my career was that I had the substantive background, but then I'm learning a whole new, like, set of skills, right? Like,
Right.
litigation skills,
Yeah.
like, practical, like, the rules of litigation, but also, like, strategy and everything like that, and, like, I just absolutely enjoyed it. I also had to learn how to bill my time,
Yeah.
which was
Oh, the worst. Yeah.
which was a huge
Right.
lesson to have to learn, and a skill that you have to really work on to develop or whatever. And so, but that was with Jen, sort of teaching me. And then, I kind of, my son was kindergarten age and I kind of wanted to like maybe take a step back. So I kind of did for a few years and then, ended up going to work with my friend Justin, and he had like a few defense files, but mostly a plaintiff's practice at that
Right.
point, and he wanted to build that up. So ultimately, I ended up switching sides, working on the employee side, which was a whole nother set of skills to
Right.
develop,
People
right?
skills.
People
Yeah.
skills.
Intern people skills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just the variety of people that you have as clients, it just changes, when you do that sort of thing.
And the expectation they have as you as a lawyer is very varying from person to
Yeah.
person,
Well, it
and that's tough.
varies from person to person and was 100% different from like adjusters.
Yeah.
So like most of the time when I was on the employer side, insurance side, I was mostly communicating with adjusters and employers. Like those people know a little bit about, I mean, the
Yeah.
employers know a little bit, the adjusters know a ton about the system. So you don't have to like explain background, right? And so, but then you switch sides and you just have all these people with different, most of whom have never encountered the work
Mhm.
comp system.
Right.
They have no idea about it, and so learning how to communicate information.
And the time too, I think, when you're on the defense side, the adjuster knows how long a work comp case can take, but the injured worker doesn't, and
Right.
all their expectations of how long the process should take is sometimes very, very wrong.
Right. And even what the system can do for them because
Yeah.
as you know, like not just work comp but like our personal injury system, like the only thing in all the, thousands of years that we've had dispute resolution, like when someone gets hurt and it's someone else's fault or in the case of a work injury, it's not the employer's fault, but that's just how the system works. Like we have to make up for the fact that they were injured somehow.
Mhm.
But the only way we've been able to come up with is money,
Right.
right? Like for economic damages, pain and suffering, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you look at all that within these systems, like it's never enough. Like most people just want it to have never happened to them.
Right.
So that's what they come into the relationship with, that expectation of like, well, can you make it so it didn't happen? And it's like, I'm not a witch. Like, I'm
Right.
like,
I would have if I
right,
could.
if I
Yeah.
could, I
Yeah.
would, but, like, the system only, and then in particular with work comp provides very limited remedy.
Yeah.
So it's all an economic, it's all economic damages, and it's only 2/3 of what they made before,
Yeah.
even if they can't work at all, it's very limited. That's just the nature of the remedy,
Right.
and so
Which causes so much stress in their personal lives, which then bleeds into us because their expectation is kind of that we're fixers.
right.
Yeah.
Like, one thing that's a good example, one thing I had to really learn when I switched to representing injured workers was that they are going to want me to fix everything,
Mhm.
even if it has nothing to do with their work comp case, right? Like,
Right.
so what am I? So it'd be like, okay, so they retain you, and then immediately it's like they think the problems,
Yeah.
whatever those problems may be, are going to be resolved right away, and it's really stressful, especially as someone who does. I want to help people,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's like, here are the tools that I have available. Like for work comp, you file a lawsuit and it's going to be 10 months before you're going to get in front of a judge.
Right.
And a lot has to happen in that 10 months too. So it could be even longer. And so it is very difficult when people kind of start to realize that, oh, the system isn't gonna be able to immediately address my concern or
Right.
whatever, but it also has forced me to be better at providing, like, solutions that might work just outside of the,
Right.
because like, work comp can only do so much, but and in fact, my law firm's, tagline is personalized, solutions for injured workers,
Right.
and that's because everyone has their own motivation and, kinda what they wanna do, and they're not just a work comp claim. Like, they're not just a work comp claim to me. They aren't making decisions based on their work comp claim. They're coming to me because they had this thing happen and they want to get past that thing, but they have a whole nother, they have a whole life
Yeah.
to live and lots of motivations. And so what we look at is like, well, here are the tools provided by the system, you know, temporary disability, permanent disability, vocational rehabilitation, and how do we use all of those tools to our best advantage to find you a solution you can live with. Now, is it
Right.
ideal? No, because
Mm.
again, most people's ideal is
This never happened.
this never happened. I
Right.
never got hurt. I'm
Right.
100%. I never had this happen. And that's just not realistic. So we know we can't do that. We move past that. And then we start looking for what those solutions are going to be.
So the workers' comp system, one thing I've never understood, and if you know it, I'm gonna pick your brain. Why is there a whole 'nother workers' comp court? Why are there a different set of judges? Why is that designed that way in Nebraska?
So, I mean, it's statutory, and I'd have every state. So, work comp is primarily state based. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there is federal work comp, but each state has their own way of doing it. And actually, Nebraska is one of a small handful. I couldn't tell you how many of states that actually have judges decide these cases.
Mhm.
In a lot of cases, in a lot of other states, the cases are it's an administrative system. So it's an
Okay.
administrative law judge. It's all under the executive branch. In Nebraska, the judges are still in the judicial branch, and then the executive functions performed by the court are kind of performed under the judicial branch. So, um, I mean, you have anytime you have a system of benefits, you have to have someone to resolve disputes,
Right,
right?
right.
So I think when they put it together, they decided to do full judges instead of administrative law judges, that sort of thing. I couldn't tell you the answer to as to why they made that specific decision,
Yeah.
but I will say that the system, whether you're in Nebraska, Florida, wherever, Georgia, however, the system was originally intended to be easy, forms based, and that you wouldn't necessarily need a lawyer to help you through it. It was supposed to be self-executing. So you get hurt at work, it's no fault. So like in a personal injury case, you're proving fault. That's a
Yeah.
huge barrier to, that's your first step when you get
Yeah.
a case, right? Is like, the other person was at fault. Well,
Right.
here you if you're an employee and it was your fault, as long as it didn't rise to the level of willful negligence, which is
Right.
very limited, but generally speaking, even if it was like an oops on your part
Yeah.
for the employee or an oops by the employer, it doesn't matter. It's still the employer's going to pay. And of course, the employer doesn't actually pay. Usually, I mean, it's
Their
work comp
insurance. Yeah.
insurance, right? And so there's all kinds of incentives when you start carrying work comp insurance and stuff. You got to, you know, do safety training and stuff like that. So there's a lot of incentive for us to reduce accidents, but when one does occur, it doesn't matter if it was the employer's fault or nobody's fault because there's a line of cases from, you know, Nebraska has an agricultural past, right? So
Right.
tons like, so Bob was out in the field, got killed by a tornado.
Yeah.
Well, that's an act of God. So it's a neutral risk.
Yeah.
Could happen to anyone. And so that's where kind of look at, well, did work put him in a position to be hit by the tornado? If the answer is yes, then yes, that's a
Yeah.
compensable injury. So, but because it, because of that, then the converse is that you don't get pain and suffering. All you get are what I call economic losses. So it's just temporary disability. If you can't work for a period of time after you're injured, you get temporary total disability. And if you fully recover, you don't get any other disability, but if you don't fully recover, there's some permanent disability benefits available, and then you get your medical paid without a copay, which, in our
Yeah.
healthcare system is a huge benefit. But with that said, um, the system itself is supposed to be sort of like, okay, you get hurt and then the employer kicks in, and these benefits, unlike in a personal injury case,
Yeah.
are contemporaneous, right? So the you're going to be off work for 6 weeks, those benefits start kicking in
Right.
right
You get
away.
paid. Right.
Right. So you get paid right away. So and that in an ideal world that and it's ironic for a work comp attorney to be saying this, in an
Yeah.
ideal world, then that would be how it is. But it's just gotten complicated. And Nebraska is particularly complicated because we do have a full judicial system. The rules of evidence don't apply to my cases, like
So
my court
interesting. Yeah.
cases. But all the judges still use the rules of evidence. I don't get out of knowing them. Like
Yeah.
I still have to know them because they still use them because anything admissible in a district court action would be admissible in work comp. There's some cases that talk about that. The question is something that's inadmissible in district court could still be admissible in work comp, but we have to look at due process
Yeah.
considerations at that point. Like, so you could still admit it, but like we're not going to. So there, I mean,
Mm.
evidence is still excluded sometimes. And then the full discovery rules apply too.
Yeah.
So we have fully litigated cases with complex discovery like
Yes.
happening. It's very different from I think what they intended, 100
Yeah.
years ago, but
I think, and I learned that firsthand when I came to you with a workers' comp case, and you're like, okay, I'll show you the ropes. And what I saw was these ropes are difficult.
yeah.
And unless you're specializing in, you don't want to dabble in workers' comp because there are some caveats and things that you just need to know. Plus, you know your case law so well. Like, it's incredible just listening to you. But I was like, yeah, this isn't going to be my cup of tea, I don't think.
Yeah, I've had a few. I actually at my old law firm, there was an associate that started and he was like, "Yeah, I'd like to learn more comp." Like, I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll show you the ropes. We'll just team
Yeah.
up on this one." And he definitely also now that one was a little different just because we had like the law itself is complicated, but it was also a weird case and just a
Yeah.
lot piled on. But yeah, I mean, I just happen to like I said, I don't think people choose like, "Oh, hey,
Yeah.
work comp."
Right.
But I happen to have that really good foundation of working at the court and learning the substantive law because it's statutory, but there are tons of cases interpreting stuff. And so that part gets complicated
Yeah.
too. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think that I'm at an advantage because I do focus on work comp and that's pretty much all I do.
Mhm.
Um,
And you've seen it from both
yeah.
sides, and that's a huge advantage. I've even in the cases that I've done with you, I can tell that you're, like, analyzing both sides, and I think that's huge for, being successful in this type of law.
Yeah, I do think
Yeah.
any lawyer should look at like the strengths and weaknesses of their case.
Mhm.
But I will say that one thing, and this has come up in my mediation practice because I do also mediate cases,
Yeah.
right? And one thing that I've just noticed, and it just kind of came up in a mediation I had Friday for me, is that like especially now that I have that last component of like representing injured workers,
Yeah.
like I've learned so much about generally, what's motivating them, what their concerns are, what their level of understanding is, which obviously varies
Yeah.
person to person, but there's some really fundamental things that I now say I explain to my clients as soon as they retain me. And so I've learned that like doing that with just even a mediation, like with an injured worker in a mediation where I'm a neutral, just explaining some of this stuff where it's like,
Right.
yeah, I don't like that either, but that's the way it is. Like that can help so much with them making an informed decision about what to do with their case because it really is just it's a weird area of law. People come up with a lot of interesting ideas about work comp.
Yeah.
Like they come into that consult, which I'm sure they do in PI too.
Yeah.
But like, they would now of course AI is a big thing. So I'll
Oh gosh, yeah.
occasionally get, well, my AI, Chat GPT said that my case was worth this much.
Yeah.
I was like, well,
Yeah.
and so it's just like having an extra. So I do think, yeah, I think it's valuable to have had because I also know how insurance companies make their
Yes.
decisions.
I think
Like,
that's huge too.
I think, and so I just really do feel like it was such a valuable career path for me to have had so much experience on both sides and just the benefit of being at the court and having that time to really learn the law. Cause, the weird questions come up they're gonna be the ones
Yeah.
that are litigated. So those are the ones that are getting like the really like, legal questions or like when the statute says this, does it include this? Like that's gonna go to the judges and then
Yeah.
even to the appellate courts. Now I don't handle, because the judges get to see sort of all the cases. Now I get, like, I mean, on the defense side, it was more of a volume thing, so you had more cases,
Yeah.
but, like, you just get a small portion of them.
Yeah.
So I don't get the really, like, every single case isn't like some interesting
Yes.
novel legal issue, right? So that was nice working at the court because a judge would get a case where there was an
Yeah.
issue and it's like, can you research this? And I get an opportunity to, and I really, I mean, so that's really where my passion is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not in like doctor's reports and all the stuff that
Yeah.
we do every day, all day for every single
Right.
case. It really is in those kind of interesting, like, legal questions,
Yeah.
but you get those too, so, it can.
Right. Let's talk about Fox Law.
Okay.
um, so what was it, about 2 years ago now? How
Yeah,
long has
2
it been?
years in October.
Oh
It'll
my
be my
goodness.
2nd anniversary,
Yeah.
October 1st.
When you
Oh, that's,
decided
like, next week.
that
I
is
just
like
realized.
yeah,
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
So I remember 2 years ago getting a phone call from you saying that you're gonna start your own firm.
Yep.
Yep, Fox Law, which is like the coolest name you could possibly have, and your logo is just awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. That was little guy branding. I appreciated I really wanted it to be a fox, like,
Yeah.
because it is memorable and it
Yeah.
kinda sticks in your brain, so,
So what made you decide to go out on your own? Take that leap that so many lawyers wanna do, but don't wanna take the risk, and you did it.
well, so I think I learned that I don't know if it's my best decisions, but I learn I have the best outcomes when I am uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was comfortable at the court when I was a staff attorney, and then I made an uncomfortable move to, like, go out into private practice, and I think that that gave me such valuable experience and projected me forward. Same thing when I switched sides, like, or when I left practice and then came back to practice, right?
Yeah.
Like, so for me, it was like, oh, I'm starting to get, I could just tell, like, oh, I've been doing this like 4 or 5 years ish, on the plaintiff side and this, and I just could tell that I was getting comfortable.
Right.
Like, and I just also, like, I like to push myself, but also I like to constantly be learning new things. So for me, it was like, I'm getting comfortable, I have like steady cases coming in. This is great, but like I'm just too comfortable maybe. So I needed something to make me uncomfortable. And at that point, it's like, I'd had the full kind of I've been on both sides. Like, what is it good? So it was either a new area of law or to kind of go out on my own. And I was fortunate to be in a position where um my husband is a partner at a law firm, and so I was able to, like, the thought of, like, just quitting your job and starting your own business is terrifying, but I
Right.
had that, like, safety net too, so it was a leap, but, like,
You had a partner.
I had a
Yeah. Yeah.
partner in doing that, so that was, like, huge.
Mhm.
And so while I would be uncomfortable, I wasn't gonna be, like, completely out on a limb, and so for me, it just made, like, for me, ultimately, it made more financial sense to, like, take that route instead of just pick a new area of law. Um, and I am a little, like, I totally in awe of people like you who can do these jury trials. Like, I still haven't quite I've never done a jury trial. I've never, like, I haven't quite, and maybe that'll be my next thing.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe that'll be when I'm comfortable running a law firm, which who
Right.
knows when that'll be. Maybe that'll be my next thing. But so for me, it just a lot, like, for many reasons, starting my own place made a lot of sense. So I just took that leap. And I took the leap and I am on my own fully, but because I had thought about, like, oh, I'll partner with someone else, or, and ultimately I just was like, nope, this is the
Yeah.
right thing. And you just sort of charge ahead, and then 2 years
Then you're here 2
passes.
years later.
Yeah, and
Yes.
you're like, "Oh, okay, we're still afloat, so it's good."
That is so exciting. And I know I've referred cases to you, and I know that a lot of people know Fox Law and, are sending cases your way. So I hope that your firm is, growing because
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah, we
awesome.
are. It's great. So one thing that I was super excited to be able to do this year is, I'm a huge soccer fan, and
Yeah.
Omaha has Union Omaha, the professional men's soccer team, and so I'm actually a sponsor this
Oh,
year.
that's so
So I was able to grow enough to be able to be a sponsor,
yeah.
a team sponsor. So it's funny because the sponsorship is, flop of the match.
Mhm.
So, like, when soccer, I don't know how much of a soccer person you are, probably.
A little bit. I
Yeah,
mean,
so, like, when one of the opposing players, like, 'Cause there's always the joke of like, oh, a soccer player barely like a stiff breeze goes by and they fall down,
Yeah.
you know? So that's what I sponsor. They pick out the team picks out like an opposing player who falls down for no reason,
Yeah.
basically. And then at the end of the game, they do the Fox Law flop of the match, which is
I love
I love it too. And so
Yes.
so that was actually like that was just a sponsorship opportunity that they already had sort of that they were shopping around and I jumped on it, you know.
Yeah.
But
That's
then I
so
came up
perfect.
with the tagline that's like because not all injuries are fake,
I love that from
which
where
was
you're
great.
yeah.
Yeah, so I love it. And that's one thing about just running a business that it it encourages you to be creative in a
Yeah.
way that like I don't think our legal practice requires creativity for sure.
Right.
But there's just some kind of fun creativity
Yeah.
that you get to have like when you're
When you're
running
yeah.
yeah,
When
like
you're the boss.
yeah, when you're the boss and you get to and it's like, I mean, who knows how effective that marketing tool is, but for me it was just like, "Oh, this is really cool." Like
Yeah.
I work really hard and I get to pick a sponsorship opportunity that may not be the most practical, but it's really fun and I love it.
Yeah.
So I went with that.
I think brand awareness though on any level, because people will hear that and over time, it's word of mouth and that's just how, the firms become big. It's just
Yeah,
that branding. So I think that's huge.
absolutely.
So another thing I wanted to talk with you about, and one thing that, part of the reason you're here is because you've been a mentor and a friend and a supporter. And I wanted to see, who are the people in your life that over the years have helped you get where you're at, both professionally, personally, anything you want to share with us?
Um, yeah, yeah. So, well, Jen Caswell, the gal
Yes.
that I mentioned, like she was probably the biggest influence in like, just the way that I practice law. Like, because I came to her without knowing anything about private practice. Like I had a good background, but I didn't know how to be a lawyer, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I would say that and she just like I just learned a ton from her and it was so I think mentorships are like very person specific
Yeah.
too cuz like I'm not a sink or swim person and I feel like she was very good at like pushing me when I needed it but also making me feel like safe and that I could always be like I'm not ready for that
Yeah.
sort of thing. So um yeah, so I would say that she is in terms of my like legal career and what it like
Mhm.
as a female attorney like just a perfect
Right.
example of like you know because I do think it's hard. I mean, it's
Mhm.
obviously hard to be a female attorney. It's a lot easier for us than it was for the women ahead of
Right.
us, and
Yeah.
I think it's becoming easier too, just from what I've seen. But so you're just like, because sometimes there isn't an answer in a rule book or a statute book. It's like this situation is happening, and how would you handle this as a woman? And so,
Right.
I would say Jen was a huge influence just in how I practice, but in also, like, just sort of navigating
Mhm.
the waters of being a female attorney, and now that I think about it too, like, another friend of ours who was at a different firm, she wasn't at our firm, but,
Right.
like, we would roundtable cases and just, like, really, learn stuff. Jessica Volker was also great, so just and again,
Yeah.
it really is, like, I know plenty of great male attorneys as well, but there's just something about, like, being mentored by, like, women
Right.
who can just give you that little extra insight because I think, because for me, I'm not a yeller. I'm not I know that works for some people, but, like, that just I always felt, like, really uncomfortable
Right.
being, like and I think both those gals really taught me just to sort of, well, you're gonna be most effective if you're being yourself.
Yes.
And so speaking of that, like, so my mom would be another influence. Like, my mom was always herself, like, and I think she always gave me permission to be myself,
Yeah.
and for me, it was I just always had that confidence of like, I wasn't always a confident kid or person,
Right.
but I always was like, "Well, but I think I am my best when I'm just being me."
Yeah.
Right? Like, even if it doesn't feel like a good fit, like through law school, it was like, people would be like hyper competitive or this and that. And like, did you do this yet? And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I couldn't, like, that was so
Yeah.
stressful.
I was the
So,
same as you.
so I had to be like,
Yeah.
I gotta be confident in myself that, like, disengaging from that is the right thing to do,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And it was for
Right.
me, like
Like, in law school, sometimes I didn't feel like I fit in, but I went ahead and just did my own thing
yeah.
because it's just like, I gotta get through this on my way, and if I try to follow the crowd, I'm gonna mess up, and yeah.
Yeah, exactly, like, if I try to be I don't know, it's hard to even describe, but it's the same way as, like, with so I call them and this is probably bad that this is on a podcast, but I call them capital T trial attorneys, like, just, like, people and I think it's great for people with the right personality, but, like, I just am not gonna go around and be like, "I did this,"
Right, yeah,
like, I just don't that's just not me, and so when I try to be like that and get results that way, it's just comical.
yeah,
Whereas if I'm just like, "Oh," because I don't take myself too seriously. I think that's kind of the thing, and, like, my going back to my mom as an influence, like, she was hilarious, and she taught me the value of humor as a way to interact with people and to, gain trust with my clients and, just to I hate to say get results, but, like, to build relationships,
yeah,
like, and, like, it's okay to be humorous, and, like,
yeah,
that's a great thing,
yeah.
so I always felt like that was, such a good foundation that she sorta gave me, so
That's awesome. Yeah. Humor is such an important thing, especially as female attorneys. That's one of the things I wanted to, talk about is especially being a female plaintiff's attorney is when I really felt it. And when I started, I was at the public defender's office and you just kind of have to take all your clients and
yeah.
you kind of feel a little bit, but it's not as much as when I became a plaintiff's attorney. And it seems like there's two camps really, and there's people that like the fact that you're a female. It's almost like they almost feel like you're more maternal or more compassionate or more understanding. But then there's also a camp of people that it seems like you almost have to prove yourself, that and I feel like that's frustrating, but also like, and so the first year or so, I was just frustrated by it all the time. And I feel like as I've matured, I've realized to just accept it. And that I don't have to do anything different, but you do know that, you're being watched and they're just, even your own client is just waiting for you to see what judgment you're going to make on a case. And it can be frustrating.
Yeah, oh, I think that's totally true. I think one thing just to build on that,
Yeah.
one thing that I learned just talking to female attorneys and talking to and observing male attorneys, I feel like female attorneys spend so much time thinking about the type of attorney that they're gonna be
Mhm.
and thinking about stuff like, "How am I coming across? Am I coming across as caring and compassionate, or am I coming across as, tough and blah, blah, blah?"
Yeah.
And how is my client reacting to me? How's the judge reacting to me, et cetera, et cetera. And then I think male attorneys think about that 0 amount of the time.
Yes.
They're just themselves
Right.
and that's what I guess I would say that I would strive for, like, that would be great if, like, all the female attorneys I know could just stop worrying about, like, "Well, I'm, like, one of those female lawyers that's just, like, really tough, and I'm, like, one that's, like,
Yeah.
humorous," and I I just wish that we could just be like, feel comfortable just being ourselves instead of thinking about how we need to be so much, because I do
Yeah.
think it's interesting. Because I will say one thing that I struggle with is that I don't believe I come across as sympathetic sometimes because, again, I'm so logical.
Yeah.
Like, I'm logical, I see both sides. I can tell you if we have a good case, and it is my job as your lawyer to tell you my honest thoughts about your case, because otherwise I'm not being a good lawyer. And some people, really respond to that and they
Yeah.
get it. Some people do not
Yeah.
respond to that. And I do think, but you're so right, because there are so many and clients, and it doesn't matter whether they're female or male clients,
Right.
like, they all have their own I think they think about it a little bit
Yeah.
more too.
Yeah.
Because 'Cause I've had clients be like, "Well, I would only ever hire a female
Mhm.
attorney." And, like, they're like, "You guys just work harder and blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
And I've had plenty of clients too who, yeah, I mean, it was like, I know you're not listening to me, and I know that if I mean, I straight up know this because my old law firm, what the work comp partner was a male.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would say A, B, C, D, and I would get pushback, and then
He would say.
he would say the same things, And to his credit, he would then also be like, "And Aaron already told you this. I don't know why am I having to do this too."
Good.
And yeah, appreciate that because that's the other thing is that tons of male attorneys have female attorneys' backs. They
Yes.
probably, for the most part, wish that the clients would also listen
Right.
to us,
Yes.
right? So that was nice. But yeah, but then the client would listen. Then the client would listen. And do I think that's happening less and less? Absolutely. But does it still, I mean, that stuff still happens. So it is exactly like you said. Like, I mean, there's just so much, but we also are like, well, how am I coming across? And then I imagine,
Yeah.
because again, I've never done a jury trial, but like, because like for me, I have the benefit of, so we have 6 judges. They all know me. They've seen me. I don't, I think there's a couple that I haven't had trials with, but like, it's one of those things where we have the benefit of like, we're not, it's a judge too, so they know the law really, really well. And they're going to be like looking at the questions presented, right?
Right.
Really focused in. Juries to me are like the Wild West. They're just like, I don't know,
That's true.
they're just, and
Yeah.
so that's where that kind of likability and stuff comes in a little bit more, I think. And then that's where I would just can only imagine, like, as someone who does worry about that stuff,
Yeah.
like, magnified by 12, right? Like, you have
Right.
12 unpredictable jurors, and you're trying to get them to like you, and it's like, I just can't even imagine. So but I also imagine that female attorneys worry about that a little bit more. Like, am I being the right
Yeah.
way? Am I being too bossy? That's
Right.
one thing,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
so, like, growing up, I was always called bossy, and then, like,
Yeah.
my mom would always be like, You're not, it's not an insult, it's a good thing."
Yeah.
So, like, just encouraging, again,
Yeah.
just me to be, strong,
Yeah.
independent.
And you were a leader, but if you were called bossy because
Right,
you're a girl,
right.
like it's just, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And, like, I do feel like, sometimes, that gets encouraged. Like, I feel fortunate that I was never encouraged to suppress that, like, especially not in service of, like, like, "Oh, well, the boys won't like you if you are
Yeah.
bossy." I'm like, I never was told that.
Right.
And so, like, I just feel like that was, I had the benefit of that. And I think as we, move forward and stuff, I do think girls are encouraged. I think law school admissions, like, are over 50% women now.
Yeah.
So I
Which is
think,
incredible.
yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
great. And I think that, I
There's a lot more female judges too.
right.
A
And
lot
so
more.
so I think we're gonna move to well, actually, the work comp court now has 2 female judges. And for like a very long time, I mean, well, for a very long time it was only men, and then there was only one female. Like, Judge Van Norman was on the bench. She was the first woman, and then when she retired, she was replaced with Judge Martin, who's still currently on the bench. But Judge Poole was just appointed. Well, now just, I say, but it's been over a year. Man, time
Gone
flies.
by so fast.
So now there are
Yeah.
2 female work comp judges on the bench, which is great as well. So yeah, I do. But hopefully we can move to that point where we stop thinking so much, like, because I really don't think my male colleagues are, like, sitting there going, like, "Well, can I be a yelly lawyer, or should I be like that?" I
Yeah.
think they
I don't
just
think they
are.
think about it at
I
all.
think they're
Yeah.
just who they are. And I think that was the biggest thing once I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I get better results, because you get a lot of pressure to be a certain way, because you
Yes.
see a lawyer do something, like, a certain way, and it's like, then everybody wants to do it that way. Like, somebody gets a huge verdict, and it's like, I gotta do exactly what that person did.
Yeah.
But, like, for me, it just, I can't do that if it's not me. Like, I'm gonna be my most effective when I'm being comfortable in my own skin, right? So, like,
Right.
trying to be like, aggressive, like,
Yeah.
that's just not gonna, I mean,
Right.
now aggressive comes in many different packages, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So being like, knowing my file better than anybody, and knowing the law better and all that
Yeah.
stuff, like, being on top of things, like, that's how I translate
Yes.
things. So,
I agree with you completely. What is your greatest success to date?
um, raising an amazing son.
Oh, he is amazing
He is
and
very
handsome. Oh my
Oh, well,
gosh.
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, he's like, it sounds so cheesy to say, but, like, he's such a good person.
Yeah.
Like, he just is very kind and respectful of other people, and he's hilarious. So for me, just the fact that when I think of, a little over 16 years ago when I found out that I was pregnant with him and being like absolutely terrified because
Yeah.
we weren't planning on having. We were
Yeah.
married, but we weren't
Yeah.
ever planning on having kids and part of that was cuz it was like, well, what if I'm bad at that? Like
Yeah.
you never
Right.
know,
Yes.
right? And so to fast forward to now, like somehow like we
You
managed.
did a good job.
Yeah. So I'm gonna claim that as a
Yes.
success. And also like being part of his life too. Like even though, we're both litigators, we're both busy, like it's insane. It feels absolutely insane. It feels crazy that I have started a law firm.
Yeah.
Um
What a great model for him, though, of what you've done, you know?
well, he
Yeah.
100% doesn't want to be a lawyer. But yes.
With parents that are.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, I'm not really sure what I wanna do, but one thing I do know is never gonna go to law school." So, which I get, but yeah, so I hope that he sees, just that, like, hard work can pay off and that you can have a busy work life and still, like, prioritize your
For the
kids,
challenges being a
your
mom? I
family.
mean, I'm not a mom, so I can only imagine.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
always look at people like you, and I'm like, "How do they do it all?" Like,
so, what's funny though, is that I look at other people and I'm like, "How do you do it?" Right? Like, I know you're running like, running your office, and I know you have so much, like and you have tons of
yeah,
cases and,
yeah,
like yeah, so and you do those jury trials, and you started out, like, as a public defender, which, like so the things about the law that I didn't love, like, when I was
yeah,
on the defense is, like, I felt like I lost all the time. Well, I mean,
yeah. That
that had
pretty
to
much
feel like
always
that,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, you have to find satisfaction or
Yeah,
whatever, but, like and I look at other people with more kids and they still like,
yeah,
so, like, yeah, but there are challenges, my mom passed away in 2014. Truman was 5, and, I was just like, I'm not spending enough time with him, like,
right,
I'm just not. Like, it felt like that, and I think part of that was a reaction to losing my mom,
yeah,
and because like, my mom was the type of mom that, like, we would just go like, I remember I can't even I would have been so little, but for some reason, I remember seeing Halley's Comet, like, we got
yeah.
up in the middle of the night, and she was just, like, very spontaneous like that, and
What a cool memory, though.
yeah,
Yeah,
and, like, and so I just was like, "Truman's not gonna have any of those memories," and, you feel guilty, like, you feel guilty when you're working so hard and I mean, you're working tons and tons of hours and you
right,
don't always, have the energy to go home and then play Hot Wheels for another 3 hours or
right.
whatever. So, and honestly, yeah, I mean, the challenges, I'd say the biggest challenge we have is just between 2 litigation schedules and school schedule.
Yeah,
It's really hard for us to find time to take a family vacation.
yeah.
And I think if we don't really like, if we aren't really mindful on that
Mhm.
and, like, planning it and carving out the time, like,
Doing it
month
intentionally.
months in advance, then we just don't end up having a trip that year, and that's just kind of a bummer because like, that's where I feel like we all get to, like, have our but we have dinner every night.
Yeah,
We also weirdly, during COVID, we, spent so much Truman was in 4th grade, and we were all working from home, basically,
yeah,
so not that that was a great time. I mean,
yeah.
it
There were
was
some definite positive things about COVID.
yeah,
It
we
brought
had
people
lunch every
together.
day.
Yeah,
We had lunch together every day. I'm like, what kid could you say that when you were a 4th grader, you got to have lunch every day with your
yeah.
parents? Like,
Right,
you just didn't. So, I mean, I didn't. My dad worked in Denver and would come home, like, he commuted and stuff. So, like, we'd see him for dinner, but, like, it was just crazy. So that was great.
right.
But yeah, I mean, the challenges are just trying to find enough time. But what you do is you just so for me, I just prioritized. I was like, it's okay if my house is messy.
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to pay a little bit extra to be able to pick up or have my groceries delivered,
Mhm.
like even before COVID. Just stuff like that where like we're gonna get takeout
Yeah,
more often than I probably would enjoy,
right.
that sort of thing. So, but it also gets, I mean, once they're older, it got so much easier.
Yeah.
Like, and he'll be driving soon, so
Self-sufficient.
so he is and he cooks dinner for me sometimes.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like, well, he's also a big health nut, so we're
Oh, that's awesome
yeah,
too.
so he started lifting weights a few years ago, and so he's gotten very strong, and
Oh,
he's very health conscious about his eating, and so, like, a lot of nights, especially if Ed is out doing something else, then our dinner will be like salmon, rice, and avocado, and he'll cook it
sweet.
for me. It's
Oh my gosh.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that I would say, like, hands down, like, just because, and I've had y- I professional success. I always struggle a little bit with professional success because it's just like it's just what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very proud of, like, having built the career that I did and
Yeah.
having opened my own firm, and it still being open after 2
Yeah.
years, and me getting cases and being busy and stuff. Super proud of that, but, like, I don't know. I think in that realm, it's just like, "Oh, well, isn't that what you're supposed to do?" Like, it's
Yeah.
normal, so I tend to discount it.
'Cause you're a high achiever. That's yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I am a lot hard. I can tell you exactly my failures. I could just start listing them
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and that is something I do try to work on, is, like, celebrating
Yeah.
successes. Yeah. Because it is, for your mental health, it's important that you learn to celebrate your successes, not
Yeah.
just tick off those failures. But
Right.
those are the ones that stick with me more than the
Yeah.
successes.
Type A,
A
perfectionist,
little bit, yeah.
all of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I told you 45 minutes would go by fast and we're there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
Crazy.
know. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing so many things.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
absolutely. You really are such a huge motivation to me. There's a lot of female attorneys in the Omaha area, some wonderful people that, we've connected with, but you stand out because you're just so easy. You're just so down to earth. You're easy to talk to. You'll answer the phone every time, and you're great at what you do.
Well,
So,
thank you.
yeah, and congratulations on 2 years with Fox Law.
Thank
Here's to
you.
another 2 more decades.
Let's hope. Well, hopefully I'll retire by
Yeah.
then, but yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for watching Grateful by Lady Law. You can find us anywhere you watch your podcast, YouTube, listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast. And until we see you again, stay grateful. Thank you.
A Huda Media Production.